Donald Trump has received the mob treatment. Watch the movie Untouchables. You know somebody's guilty of murder or graft or corruption or manipulating the election or inciting a riot against the U.S. government and being a traitor or whatever. But what you can get them on is they refuse to file taxes, as I said previously in another video, maybe on the other channel. All anybody had to do in the mob was actually pay their taxes on all the money they earned and just refuse to tell anybody the truth of where it came from. It would have still been falsification of records to the federal government, but they wouldn't have been guilty of not paying their taxes. And it would have had almost no merit in court. And more importantly, they could have easily faked it by having legitimate businesses be where the money is going through and just have them sell stuff back and forth for a false profit, which was actually something that a lot of businesses, illegitimate businesses run by mobs or whatever, have actually done and got away with. As long as you don't have the treasury agents following you, you really don't have as much as trouble. First degree falsification of 34 New York business records for your personal gain. That last part doesn't have to be there. It could be to hide something. It could be to help somebody else and maybe cause yourself a detriment, but you're doing it as a payout. Any falsification of business records in the state of New York. Donald Trump, just listen for a second, at his Mar-a-Lago home, had a bunch of documentation that was illegal for him to have, and he said after it was found, I have a right to it. I can take whatever I want. It's mine. When it's not. It is objectively not his to take. Overtly saying that on the news, which will be brought up because he's guilty of taking top secret documents. Bitching about Hillary Clinton discussing the subject of top secret content in an email server after it was then retroactively made top secret a year later isn't the same thing. And no, it's not the same as Joe Biden ending up with, I think it's 3 or 4 documents, Donald Trump having hundreds. And overtly saying he did it deliberately. He absolutely said he did this deliberately. It was not an accident. And there's even signs that after he received a summons, he tried to hide some of it. Because he's obsessed about doing something transgressive, doing something against the rules, to throw it in people's faces. No, Trump isn't like that at all. Say that with a straight face. While drunk. I dare you to do it. Make a drinking game of it. No, that's exactly what he fucking did. And yeah, in New York, everybody in New York's okay with anybody who's a, legitimate businessman. Real estate brokers are mostly going to do something criminal eventually. And he was a real estate mogul. Yes, that's what he was. And he was in New York. And he's a New York-style real estate broker. And tycoon at one time. And they found 34 records so far that he falsified. Well, they're going after him for political gain. Going after for Hillary Clinton for having an email server that when it was an operation and when she set it up was not illegal to make. Let's convict her. Some of you are literally about burning her alive at the stake. Donald Trump, no bullshit, went out of his way to break laws on purpose because he wanted to get away with it. It's not cutting corners. It's not expediency. That's the only way to do business in New York. That's him flaunting it. That's the 34 that were the easiest. Each one of these carries a 4-year prison term maximum. But if you get, I'm sorry, but this is really what happens. It doesn't matter how famous you are. Once you do more than 4 or 5 of them, they prosecute you for 4 years bare minimum and then let you talk yourself into spending more time in prison if you don't cooperate. What they do to you as a big businessman, white-collar crime, is they make you rat out everybody else, and you still go to prison for 4 years, and you're never permitted to do whatever work it is. You're barred from that kind of work. I've run into 2 people who screwed up. One of them, I'm not going to say his name on camera. I worked for him. I didn't know that he'd gone through something. He had all his money seized by, at the time, a country that was still influenced by the Russian government. That's what he was. He did business in the place where this kind of shit would be normal. So he couldn't go back there. They froze all his funds, and our business went out of business. We were a computer shop. And, even the United States government's like, we're being told to hold you. We're not going to do that because this is horse shit, but we can't help you with the money because it's an international incident if we do. Okay, that's totally unrelated, but what did they charge him with? Falsifying records. They also tried to get him falsifying records in the state of Oregon and New York. Now, the reason I know about this is he was alerted, and I got to hear the conversation, and they're like, yeah, I could be going to prison from anywhere from 4 years to 50, because at that point he had a smaller number. He says, they'll definitely mandatory 4 years, but I was also told they don't believe him guilty of any of this. The idea was that another country may have falsified documents to make him look like he falsified documents. And the last time I checked, I got an email literally 2 or 3 years later. He was on the run, technically, in the United States. He went to, like, Montana or something. He sent me a check. Yeah, this is the money I owed you for the last 6 weeks that you were working there, and the last 2 months you ran the place without a paycheck. Here's your money. So I got paid off eventually. By then I already had another job, but I appreciate it. I asked him how he's doing. He's like, oh, I'm fine. I'm just not leaving the country because they obviously don't want me to go back there. And no, I don't have to go to prison. And they said the maximum term would have been based on them doing sequential, not concurrent punishment. And in this case, what they were claiming would have definitely put him in prison for, like, at that point it was 60 years because they found more. Now, why would they do this? Because they'll give you a deal. You go to prison for 4 years, and we get you convicted of everything else, and we make you sign a deal after you get out in 4 years, because it's always 4 years. Once you're beyond a certain point, it's 4 years. Unless you give some really good dish on somebody who'll probably have you shot. What they do is they put you in prison for 4 years and make it illegal for you to open a business, run a business, or be associated with any part of business or finances. That's a very important thing in the state of New York. What that means is you're not allowed to have a bank account. You have to do everything through a lawyer and an accountant that the state approves of. You can't hire anybody independent who's really slick and, fast talking. You have to hire you have to run a legitimate business just to have an account personally. They will also seize all your money. They will not let you have it back. They consider you a source of RICO Act kind of shit. This is a foot in the door to find out everything else you've been involved in. Obviously, you can claim this is some sort of political attack, but I have some news for you. Donald Trump has been a businessman in New York for a long enough period of time that some, but not all of the shit he may have pulled is beyond the statute of limitations. It is not at all beyond the statute of limitations for all of it. Statute of limitations, New York, white-collar crime. You might want to look it up. I'll leave a link below. Now, why am I doing this video? I'm not interested in arguments about whether or not he will, for the purpose of transgressive behavior, deliberately do things in your face and say, I dare you to call me on it. That's his fucking MO now. He's gotten old and he's turned into a I'm an immortal being attitude. Because he's in his 70s or something and he's going to die anyway, he doesn't give a shit. Think about it. He's in relatively fantastic health. He went through having COVID-19 and didn't die at his age. That's like a trial by fire. I don't think he believes he's going to die anymore. Maybe he's going to cooperate. But what he's going to do is he's going to rat everybody out. He pled the fifth when he said only criminals and mobsters do it. He'll do exactly what the mobsters did. The way they avoided very long prison terms is agreeing to never do a legitimate business, much less a criminal business, and just go into retirement. And basically, these days, they go on disability and public retirement money once they get out of prison, which is anywhere from 4 to 20 years. And they just shut up and hide. You're not allowed to be famous anymore. You don't have money. You don't have anything. Because you're going to have to pay back everything in fines and fees on top of the criminal timing. Go ahead and look up the fines for falsification, first-degree falsification of business records in New York. What is the fine? It's a fairly large one. Donald Trump would have to then also overtly prove his net worth and everywhere he's hidden his money. He'd have to dig up everything from the Cayman Islands, his Swiss bank accounts, everything, so that they could assess him. If he argues at all, they take 34 and multiply it by 4, and he's divided by 0. That's it. He's ended. He's not going to get out of prison, period. We're done. He gets a 4-year prison sentence because they're going to say, no, fuck you, you're in there for 4 years. And you have to give up the goods on everything that you did, and they have to find every bit of records, including the other books that are hid. And he'd have to pay all his taxes back that he hid. And another thing that they'll do is to make it hurt as much as possible and to disempower your probable RICO Act criminal organization. They go into that assumption. They make you liquidate everything, and they make you pay the taxes retroactively that you're able to avoid as a rich person. And then when you get out of prison, you can file a tax return begging for the money back because they make you pay with no deductions. They've done that to a couple of people. The idea is to completely destroy the criminal enterprise. If you did, I have no doubt, Donald Trump's organization and Trump himself are legally guilty of 34 occurrences, at least, of this. He's too damn old, and he's been, in many of your opinion, too damn successful not to do this. This is the whole closet full of skeletons getting picked through. They're going after every bone and tooth. He's not going to get out. If he's convicted of one of them, it'll be 4 years, period. They're not going to even try to back down at this point. Next, these are the 34 that are easily proven. Once it's shown, he only has to be declared guilty for one of them, that it is highly likely he's guilty for the others. They can accrue as much time as they want to in sentencing. You don't have to be found guilty of 34 incidents to be put in for the maximum sentence for one of them. But if he's found guilty on 2 or 3 of them, this shows a pattern of behavior, and they're allowed to dig further. And they can demand and request data and people from other states be dragged kicking and screaming to the state of New York to keep filing more cases against him. And again, to avoid that and multiply out the time and make this take longer and have him lose more and more money, it is in his best interest to very tactically confess to a whole bunch of shit, throw himself in the mercy of the court, say, please throw me in jail for 4 years only, and then I can't run any businesses. But they could also put one more thing on it. Have him legally acknowledge that he's forbidden from running for office or politicking for the rest of his life, and they'll knock it down to 2. This means that he would disappear. If he pops up like a turd in a punch bowl, it's 12 years in prison because he's convicted 3 times or whatever. Your condition for the rest of your life to not be thrown in a prison cell is to fucking disappear and shut up. You are going to witness protection program yourself. Because the Secret Service legally would be obliged to do so. They'd protect him from whoever he ratted out. He would have to hide. And no, he wouldn't be releasing statements because he'd have to agree, well, we'll cut it down to 2 years. You're still in orange. We get the photos. We get our trophy, your head. But afterwards, you don't pop up anymore. Forever. You disappear. You don't have any money anymore except the basics to survive. You get to retire permanently. We don't want to deal with you anymore. I don't know if you get this, but what kind of accusations did he make against the state of New York at any time in his life? How much shit has he pulled? This may not be political. This may be just because Donald Trump's been a pain in the ass to the state of New York, because maybe he avoided taxes. Tax evasion on the state level and on the federal level have a very different timeline to it. But again, first degree falsification of 34 New York business records so far, 4 years each, multiply it out, he's fucked. His best bet is to say, I am guilty of all of these, and make a positive assertion on camera. They're not going to take the cameras out of the room. That ain't going to happen. I wouldn't let them do that. Well, I'm not going to agree to it. Then we're going to just prosecute the fuck out of you and throw you in jail for as many years as we can. Max sentence. If we only get 2 sentences, that's 8 years in prison at his age. He'll plead out. Or he'll bleed out. And again, I would mandatorily, no, you're going to go to prison for 4 years even if you do a sweet deal with us. And again, this is just the ones that are easily proven. If they're smart, they're the easily proven ones. Where there's ridiculous amounts of evidence and there's no argument here. He can argue all sorts of things, but he has to get a bunch of people to take the fall for him. There's a lot of loyalists, but that organization had way too many people. Every secretary and frickin' mailroom boy is going to be turning state's evidence. Maybe even for revenge. Because he rubs everybody the wrong way. And yes, as of now, all gag orders he had anybody sign are dead in the water. Because he's going to lose that really quickly. And he's not allowed to talk either. Kind of turnabout fair play. Now, why am I happy about this? I'd like to see this done to every criminal in every political party. both sides, because they need to be removed. Watching it happen once means it might happen again. Maybe it'll happen to somebody you don't like. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck.